Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So while I was researching videos about the 4-star shortage and what exactly type of topic I can do to fix it, I thought of an idea that's a bit more interesting than just saying, hey, Hoyoverse, add more 4-star characters. Instead of adding more 4-star characters as my general suggestion, how about we look at the current limited 5 stars and see which of these 5 stars would actually be much better off as a 4-star, just so we could fix the abysmal 5 to 4-star ratio. The concept of this is basically to make HSR's 4 to 5-star ratio be as similar as possible to Genshin Impact. So to give a scale, Genshin Impact has 96 characters excluding the Traveler, which is the main character, and 52 of those are 5 stars, 44 of those are 4 stars. So the overall ratio of 5 stars to 4 stars in Genshin Impact is 54 to 46. Now for HSR, there's 65 characters, 42 of which are 5 stars, and 23 of which are 4 stars, which means the ratio of HSR, 65% for 5 stars, 35% for 4 stars, nearly 2 to 3. Which means if we want HSR's 5 to 4 star ratio to be as similar to Genshin Impact as possible, we need 35 5 stars and 30 4 stars. So what we will be doing in this video is to figure out 7 limited characters that could have passed off as 4 stars and make them 4 stars. Let's get into this in chronological order. Now Jingyuan and Zila, I don't think I could say either one of them could have been a 4-star simply because it was 1.0, and when it was 1.0 there was a pretty healthy amount of 4 stars, so we didn't need to really touch it. Now these two characters are pretty interesting because I can see both of them could have passed off as 4 stars. Now for Luocha, here's the problem. The only other healer back then was Bailu and Natasha. And if Luocha was a 4-star, what was the point of Natasha in the first place? It's a bit too quickly to power creep Natasha, I think. So I can't really pass off Luocha as a 4-star simply because of the pool of 4-star characters around that time. As for Silverwolf though, she did seem more like a side grade to Pela, and yeah, I don't think the power difference is that large to where I can say that she needed to be a 5-star. Like sure, the fact that she could brute force bosses was very strong at the start, but I do think that later on, the fact that she became such a side grade to Pela, and the fact that her niche just didn't age that well, I think could put her in contention as a 4-star. So that's our first 5-star turned into a 4-star that I can justify. Kafka and Blade. I don't think Kafka well, the thing is, if Kafka became a 4-star, she would still be locked to Sampo as her team member. And the problem that DOT faced later on is that there was never a 4-star Kafka after. So for the health of the game, she could have been a 4-star, but the thing is, it's Kafka. She's way too important to be a 4-star. Same with Blade. I think out of Kafka and Blade, we'll have to skip it for now because I think they're just too important to the lore that you couldn't sell them as a 4-star or anything less. Now Fushuan and Imbiber to Lune. The only other 4-star preservation character is March 7th. She actually has situations where maybe March 7th would have been better. If you tuned Fushuan's numbers down, I think she could have passed off as a 4-star. I think you could have passed off Fushuan as a 4-star even if she is that low relevant. You could have passed her off as a 4-star just by tuning her numbers down, I think. And that would solve the issue of March 7th being the only other preservation 4-star. Next, Jingliu and Topaz. Now Jingliu is pretty important to the plot and she was hyped to hell. It just wouldn't make sense if Jingliu was a 4-star because of how she compares to Yanqing. I feel like out of all the Stonehearts, she would be the weakest so far. This is a very hard decision. Topaz being a 4-star would generally be changing much of the game. Well, sad to say, I think Argenti could have, but there were so many pure fiction free options like Herta and Himiko. I think Argenti being a limited option is fine. As for Huohuo, this is a tricky one. It depends on her healing, right? I feel like Huohuo's healing, if it wasn't that good, could have passed off as a 4-star. if her healing was really bad, but she specialized in a lot of cleansing, similar to Link's, but in a different way, then I could see her as a 4-star. And she's not really that important to the lore or strength-wise is above Hanya or Shui. If you removed Huohuo's energy benefits, I think she could pass off as a 4-star. And if you tune down her healing, I suppose. Dr. Ratio and Ron Mei. Ron Mei, no way in hell was gonna be a 4-star with that kit. There was no way. Dr. Ratio was essentially sold to us as a 4-star anyway. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't have changed anything if Dr. Ratio was sold as a 4-star. They basically admitted it themselves that Ratio could have been a 4-star. Sparkle and Black Swan. She's such a big upgrade over Sampo. Could she have been a 4-star? Like, if Black Swan couldn't be a 4-star, Kafka should be a 4-star. Just because the entire archetype is locked with Kafka. Which one of these would I sacrifice? Honestly, I think I would take Black Swan more as a 5-star, and for the health of the game, it would be better if Kafka was a 4-star, just so everyone has access to the DOT playstyle. Next, Akron Aventurine. There's no way Akron could have been a 4-star. Same with Aventurine. There's just no way. Aventurine was such a strict upgrade over Preservation March 7th that there's no way he could have been anything else than a 5-star. So yeah, I'll leave these two alone. Bootel and Robin. Ooh. Do I think Bootel could have been I don't think Robin could have been a 4-star. No way. For Bootel though, the most similar character to him is Luca. He would be way too similar to Luca that I can't really justify it. I actually think I should leave Bootel alone. Firefly, no way. Firefly and Jade, no way I could have made Firefly a 4-star. But for Jade though, she would be a lot like Herta and Himiko, but the fact that she's still reliant on units like Herta and Himiko, I think I could see her being a 4-star. While she is pretty similar to Himiko and Herta, she still really wants units similar to her anyway. Jade being a 4-star doesn't really hurt anything, and it helps everyone else. Zhao Cho and Yun Li. Now this is a interesting one, because I think both of these characters could have passed off as a 4-star. For Zhao Cho, if he was a 4-star, Akron would be a lot less taxing to play later on, and basically just a free bump for Akron, and Akron stays relevant without any cost requirements. Now if Yun Li was a 4-star, I could see that happening too. She's not that important to the lore, but the fact that there's no 4-star counter unit, Clara is a 5-star, but still, you know, the fact that there's no 4-star counter unit could mean that Yun Li being a 4-star would have been better for the game in general. I think Zhao Cho needs to stay as a 5-star, because even if Akron relies too much on him for his value these days, I think Akron has a good enough amount of 4-stars that she can use. Whereas with Yun Li, there's not a lot of counter units in general anyway. But I think if Yun Li was an E6 4-star, she could have been the same amount of power as an E2 Clara. I think I could have seen that happening. It's too realistic. Fei Xiao and Ling Xia, there's no way I could make these two. One of the main things that spurred on this idea of a video is that when Sunday had a trial, they realized that there was no 4-star he could have worked with. And so they had to up the cost of his trial for the first time ever, because there was no 4-star option for Sunday to boost. Maybe Ling Xia could have been a 4-star just so Sunday could have had a better trial, and I could remove someone else from this list. I think I could remove Jade. Gallagher does have his own upsides, and Ling Xia does have her own upsides. I think these two units are different enough where I can see them existing in the same rarity bracket. What I would have done is I would have made Ling Xia not support break, and I could see her being a 4-star. Rappa was the only 5-star on her patch, so I can't really say that she could have been a 4-star. Fugue and Sunday is way too important, and the thing about Fugue is that her entire purpose was meant so that you can still run Super Break even if you have RMC. As for the others, we're in 3.0 now, Aglaya and the Herta, which could have been a 4-star. No, I don't think the Herta, there's no way the Herta could have been a 4-star. There's already a 4-star Herta. We can't have that. I don't think so. She's too important too. She's like the Jing Yuan of her time. Tribi and My Day, with her kit, I think she could have been a 4-star if they tuned down her numbers. She would have been too similar to Pela too at that point. Yeah, no, I don't think I could pass Tribi off as a 4-star. As for My Day, no, I can't pass him off as a 4-star either. Maybe he could have passed off as a 4-star because of the burst the Berserk mechanic would have meant he was kind of a Blade side grade. He's too important to the lore. I really can't see him being a 4-star. Like, he's too similar to Blade in lore importance too that I can't really see it. Castorus and Anaxa, I don't think either of these could have been 4 stars either. I sure wish that Castorus was a 4-star just so that global passive would... but she's way too important to the lore too. She's like gonna be a Kafka situation here. Maybe Anaxa could be a 4-star too, but that would kinda cut Serval's knees off. They wouldn't even be a side grade of Serval, they would just be a strict upgrade in every way. Well, we're at 7 characters enough anyway. This is a balanced enough pool of 3 4-stars, so I think this is fine. So limited 5-star characters that I would have had as 4 stars. Silverwolf, because if you just tune down her numbers and maybe even with the implant mechanics currently, I think she would have been a side grade to Pela farther down the line anyway. So I don't think it's gonna take a lot really for Silverwolf to be a 4-star. Fuxuan, I don't think it would have been out of the ordinary for her to be a 4-star either, because there are situations where she just dies really because her protection is not perfect. And if you compare her to the other 4-star preservation character, March 7th, at least March 7th has a shield and a follow-up. It's enough to differentiate herself from Fuxuan, who's still taking HP damage and doesn't do a follow-up and just does a buff. Boho, if you remove the fact that maybe if you cut her energy regeneration to half, I could see her being a 4-star. Dr. Ratio, they already kinda gave you the indication that he could have been a 4-star by giving him for free. So I think him being a 4-star is not that out of the ordinary. Kafka, here's the toughest one that I have to consider. Because Kafka is way too important in lore, but for the health of the game, she would have been better off as a 4-star. Because the entire archetype of DOT is locked around using Kafka. And if she was a 5-star, the reason why DOT is such a problematic archetype right now is there's no cheap option for it. Kafka is pretty much the most important part of the equation. Her being a 4-star would have been better for the game, even though it doesn't make sense in lore. I would take that risk. The only other counter character aside from Yun Li in the 4-star bracket, there's no 4-star character that has a counter. So Yun Li being a cheaper version, quote-unquote cheaper version of Clara could have worked. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Future Wave. I actually think that Castorus should have been a 4-star instead of Yun Li. The reason why is because obviously Clara and Yun Li it didn't make sense once I hear it back of my reasoning about them, but also because Castorus is global buff, and the fact that there's no Memo Sprite character that's a 4-star outside of the main character. I think it's gonna be either a toss-up between Aglaya or Castorus, who could have been a 4-star, and for the health of the game, definitely Castorus, but realistically, I think they would have made Aglaya a 4-star more likely. Anyway, back to the video. As for Lingsha, I don't think she could have been a 4-star in her current state though. I think if you want her to be a 4-star, she wouldn't be a break support, so she wouldn't tread on Gallagher as much. Even right now, Gallagher and Lingsha have so many difference in pros and cons that I think she could have passed off as a same rarity as Gallagher without stepping on his toes too much. With this pool of characters, the ratio of 5 to 4-star characters in honkaistarrail is now equal to Genshin Impact. And I think if these characters were considered 4-stars, we would be in a much better state of the game, I think. Hope you like it. Hope you like this video. Like, share, subscribe, do the algorithm stuff, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.